Hey everybody, welcome back to Great Mechanical Pencils. When a thumbnail talks about government secrets, you usually expect cover-ups or classified files, but today's secret is sitting right on your desk. There is a multi-million-dollar federal program that dictates exactly what the U.S. military and federal agencies can use to write with. It's called the AbilityOne program, and while the branding says SKILCRAFT, the underlying engineering often comes from names you already know and love. Most of these heavy-duty government-issue pencils have direct commercially available equivalents that civilians buy every day. After a very quick look at why the U.S. government is forced to buy these, we're doing another stationary deep dive where I'm going to compare these government issue models side by side with familiar commercial legends. We'll take them apart piece by piece to examine the internal clutches, mechanisms, and quirks, and see how they really work under the hood. We're also going to cover, in my opinion, one of the nicest Skillcraft pencils ever made, and it's still available today. When we cover it, I'll include the NSN numbers. So if you're in the military or government service, maybe you can order yourself one and check it out. Before we dive into today's review, I want to give a huge shout out to my friend Duffy Moon, the brilliant mind behind the channel Moving About and Manipulating Objects. Duffy was kind enough to send over a care package of Skillcraft pens and pencils for us to dig into today. In fact, Duffy has done some fantastic deep dive videos on several of the exact models we're covering today, so be sure to check those out on his channel as well. His content mainly covers wood and mechanical pencils, vintage and contemporary pens, radios, watches, and typewriters. So go check it out. So before we take a closer look at these reliable Skillcraft pens and pencils, the ones you've probably used in schools, the office, or in the military for years, there's a really cool story behind them that I wanted to share with you and kind of explain how all this works and why the government uses these pencils. It all starts back in 1938 when President Franklin Roosevelt signed the Wagner-O'Day Act. The goal was simple but powerful: use the federal government's purchasing power to create meaningful jobs for people who are blind. Then in 1971, the law was expanded and renamed the Javits-Wagner-O'Day Act, or JWAD, and this was to include people with significant disabilities and open up more products and services. That program is now known as the AbilityOne program, and here's how it works. The U.S. AbilityOne Commission oversees everything. They designate a central nonprofit agencies, called a CNA, like the National Industries for the Blind, or NIB, to manage a network of nonprofit organizations. They employ people who are blind or have significant disabilities, and these nonprofits make thousands of high-quality products that federal agencies are actually required to buy if they're on the procurement list. And that's where the Skillcraft brand comes in. Skillcraft is NIB's flagship brand, known for dependable office supplies, hardware, pens, pencils, and a lot more. Every Skillcraft pencil you pick up supports real jobs and skilled craftsmanship right here in the US. So, the next time you're writing with one of these, you're not just using a solid pencil. You're supporting a program that's creating opportunities for nearly 90 years. So now that we know who Skillcraft is, let's take a look at some of their pencils. This is an older twist style pencil, probably from the 70s, and from what I can tell, it was completely phased out of catalogs by the 1980s, as cheap, disposable click pencils dominated. This pencil uses the classic helical drive, tip-loaded twist mechanism, and refuses to accept modern lid sizes, strictly requiring vintage 1.1 or 1.18 millimeter graphite. I couldn't do a Skillcraft video without including these ballpoint pens. Pens like this were all over the house when I was a kid. Introduced in April of 1968 under strict GSA specifications, they are famous for being engineered to an absurdly rugged standard. They're required by federal contract to write continuously for a minimum of 1 mile, that's 5,280 feet, and to function flawlessly in extreme environments from minus 40 degrees to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And there are two versions here. The one with the black and striped band is from the modern era, and this was from the mid-1990s to present. The solid silver band is the vintage model. They were made like this from 1968 to the early 1990s. This was known as the double ender, and it was uniquely engineered to hold thick, durable 0.9 millimeter lead on both sides. The red side was used for making corrections or marking map grids, or for high visibility editing, and the black side was loaded with standard graphite for regular writing or taking log notes. These heavy-duty twist-type pencils were heavily distributed throughout the 1960s and 70s and into the 80s. This is the Fidelity, and I believe it's been around since at least the 1980s. I've seen it with several different types of text printed on the barrel, but the 0.5mm models are usually only available in burgundy. The SKILCRAFT Fidelity features a distinct grip profile that reminds me of the Faber-Castell XF from the TK Fine series. It comes with a precise 3-jaw brass chuck, and, unlike transitional or discontinued models in the SKILCRAFT archive, the Fidelity series is a true timeless classic. It has been a standard federal procurement fixture for decades, and remains active in production today, and found in federal offices and military desks worldwide. Introduced around 2008, the SKILCRAFT American Classic is one of the most reliable and long-running mechanical pencils in the federal procurement system. Most SKILCRAFT pencils are color-coded, and the 0.9mm version of this one always features its signature black barrel. The American Classic is built for heavy-duty, high-volume use and comes with a brass clutch. The version stamped with U.S. government is fitted with a black eraser, and the commercial variant comes with a white eraser. The text on the pocket clip faces different directions also. Aside from that, these pencils are pretty much identical. The BoldPoint is a highly regarded writing instrument with federal stationery collectors. While SKILCRAFT utilized the BoldPoint designation for co-branded ink pens, this pencil, with its 1.1mm lead, is the most celebrated and historic model bearing this specific name. Released around 2009, it remains an active, current production model, heavily utilized across military and federal offices. The SKILCRAFT Dual Action debuted in the Federal Supply Catalog around 2008, and it continues to be actively manufactured by AbilityOne nonprofit workshops to keep federal and military desks stocked. And as we've seen, SKILCRAFT utilizes a strict military-friendly visual color coding across its administrative inventory. And this one follows suit with burgundy in 0.5mm and black in 0.7mm. This Nock-type pencil comes with a twist-style eraser and a sliding sleeve, and beyond the mechanics, it's incredibly comfortable. Users love the soft, ergonomic grip. It's designed to reduce fatigue. The Dual Action is a near-perfect replica of the now discontinued Pentel QE305 Gomdale, an early Japan-exclusive twist erase model, making it the closest experience you can get to owning the original. There are a few key differences. While the Gomdale featured an eraser that matched the body color, the Dual Action version features a standard white eraser. Additionally, the original QE305 featured a fixed 2mm lead sleeve, where the modern Dual Action is fully pocket safe, thanks to its retractable sliding sleeve design. When you open it up, the engineering is surprisingly robust for a utility pencil. Loading the lid is straightforward. Just pull the pencil apart and drop the lid into the reservoir, and you're ready to go. Simply unscrew the nose cone to reveal the core mechanism. Here you will find a quality brass clutch, a significant step up from plastic components often found in modern office supplies. So say what you will about a government contract pencil, but the Dual Action is just a cool pencil, and if you're a fan of the original Pentel twist erase pencils, you should definitely check one out. So the Draft Pro is one of the nicest pencils I've seen from SKILCRAFT, next to the Dual Action, which I really like. But it was released around 2020 or 2021 to modernize SKILCRAFT's drafting lineup. It inherits the exact distinct front-winded profile of the GraphGear 500. And coming up next, we're going to do a head-to-head comparison of the two. The BioWrite line was released in the mid-2010s and has since been phased out of print and discontinued. True to its name, the BioWrite was designed as an environmentally friendly option for federal agencies and military offices. The green-barreled 1.3mm model was uniquely issued to the government preloaded with red HB lead, primarily utilized by inspectors, editors, and logistics planners for making bold, highly visible corrections. And last, we have the Stainless Elite. It's a beautifully professional crossover piece that proves executive-level stationaries don't have to be fragile. The Stainless Elite is a highly practical, professional addition to the federal catalog. It bridges the gap between rugged field utility and executive office aesthetics, mimicking the look and durability of high-end steel and resin pens, but engineered completely as a heavy-duty mechanical pencil. It comes in 0.5mm and 0.7mm. And unlike the drafting pencils with their fragile fixed pipes, the Stainless Elite features a retractable sliding middle guide pipe assembly. Based on the NSN number, the Stainless Elite has been part of SKILCRAFT's lineup for roughly a decade, and it was released somewhere in the mid-2010s. This is a nice looking pencil, but open it up and you'll find a disappointing surprise. The clutch mechanism inside is plastic, not metal, likely a cost-cutting measure. Collectors and enthusiasts have pointed out more than once that the internal clutch and click advance mechanism feel noticeably light and hollow in your hand. However, while I have not used this pencil extensively, I really haven't had any of those negative experiences yet. I wanted to take a minute and thank you for watching. And coming up next, we're going to close out the video with a quick comparison between the Draft Pro and the Pentel GraphGear 500. And if you're enjoying these videos, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. I wanted to compare the Draft Pro to both versions of the GraphGear 500, the PG510 and the PG520 that was made for the US market. When you stack these side by side, the size difference is the first thing you notice. The Draft Pro runs 152 millimeters long and weighs 15.5 grams, the largest and the heaviest of the three. The PG510 comes in at 147.7 millimeters and 14.8 grams. And the PG520 is the most compact at 143 millimeters and also at 14.8 grams. But length and weight only tell part of the story. What actually changes how a pencil feels in your hand is the center of gravity, or where the weight is concentrated along that length. The Draft Pro balances at 67 millimeters from the tip, and the PG510 sits at 65 millimeters. The PG520 pulls it tighter still, balancing at just 60 millimeters from the tip. That 7 millimeter spread between the Draft Pro and the PG520 is more noticeable than it sounds. A balance point closer to the tip puts more weight towards the front of the grip, which can make a pencil feel more nose-heavy and precise for fine line work. A balance point set further back, like on the Draft Pro, shifts the weight towards the body, giving it a heftier, more substantial feel in your hand. So even though the Draft Pro is only a few grams heavier on paper, where the weight sits changes the whole character of the pencil, and that's something a spec sheet alone just won't tell you. The SKILCRAFT Draft Pro isn't just inspired by the Pentel GraphGear 500. In federal procurement terms, it's treated as a direct substitute for it. To make catalogs more efficient, the AbilityOne Commission uses a designation called Essentially the Same, or ETS, to flag commercial products that match an AbilityOne item in fit, form, and function. And in federal procurement data, the GraphGear 500 series is listed as the ETS commercial equivalent to the Draft Pro. And what this means in practice, if a federal agency needs this kind of a pencil, they're required to buy the SKILCRAFT version. They can't just go pick up a GraphGear 500 from a regular office supplier. It's a small example of how deep the AbilityOne program runs into federal procurement, even down to the mechanical pencil on someone's desk. The most noticeable difference between the Draft Pro and the GraphGear is the black plastic barrel on the Draft Pro is covered with a rubberized soft touch or matte rubberized coating that extends across the entire barrel of the pencil. The lead hardness indicator comes in 2B, B, HB, H, 2H, and 3H, and matches the classic drafting and technical drawing orientation. And also, the hardness indicator is built with real intent. Once you dial in your grade, it stays put, and there's enough resistance on the mechanism that it won't drift or shift on its own. You have to deliberately move it. It comes with a replaceable eraser. However, like most modern pencils, there is no lead jam clearing rod. This assembly is a bit tricky here, and while I do recommend this pencil overall, I wouldn't suggest taking it apart repeatedly. It's just not engineered for that kind of repeated disassembly and reassembly that you'd get away with something like the GraphGear 500. So if you unscrew the grip from the pencil body, it still doesn't come free, but if you give it a good tug, you'll see why. Here's another look at that soft rubberized coating on the barrel. The eraser and eraser holder assembly is press fit into the lead reservoir tube, and that's the main reason why I wouldn't recommend taking this pencil apart repeatedly. I'm just not confident that joint will hold up well over time with repeated disassembly. But with the eraser assembly removed and gone, you can pull out the lead reservoir tube and grip assembly in one piece. Next, unscrew the tip from the grip and slide the grip off. That exposes the pencil's core, the tip, clutch mechanism, and lead reservoir tube, all which remain connected as a single piece. Next, you can unscrew the tip to remove it to expose the brass clutch assembly. Oh. This pencil comes with a spring cushion tip. A compression spring is neatly sandwiched by a white plastic sleeve mechanism, and that is screwed into place into the tip. When I first tried removing the tip without taking off the grip assembly, the tip just spun in place. But once I removed the grip, I could grab the internal mechanism and unscrew it from the tip assembly to expose the clutch inside. There may be a better method, but this was the best one I could come up with to show you on camera. So where does that leave the comparison? The GraphGear 500 has decades on the market and thousands of reviews, including users reporting the same pencil holding up after 10 years plus of daily use. The SKILCRAFT Draft Pro doesn't have that track record yet. It's only been around since 2020 or 2021. But for a budget tier pencil, so far the quality ratings have been strong, and it holds up well against the GraphGear 500 in day-to-day use. It just hasn't had the time to prove itself the way the GraphGear 500 has. And here's something the GraphGear 500 doesn't have: a spring cushion tip. Press down and the sleeve gives slightly before the lead engages. It's a small mechanical detail, but it absorbs the pressure that would otherwise transfer straight to the lead and to your hand. Okay, that's it for today, and thank you for watching. And a big thanks to Duffy Moon over at Moving About and Manipulating Objects for sending these my way. Definitely go check out his channel if you haven't already. And as for the pencils themselves, I've really enjoyed spending time with them. They're a lot more capable than people tend to give them credit for, and both the Dual Action and the Draft Pro are worth a look if you've never tried them before. And of course, SKILCRAFT as a whole deserves credit for the opportunities they create through their programs. There's real purpose behind these tools, and that matters almost as much as how well they perform on paper. If you've written them off before, it might be worth giving them a second chance. You may be surprised. And before I wrap things up, I want to say one final thank you for all the people who make SKILCRAFT possible. I'd like to thank and acknowledge all of our active duty military, veterans, and government employees who serve our country. Your service is greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching. And I also want to thank the members of the Narcology Mechanical Pencil Forum, the Mechanical Pencil subreddit and Facebook groups, and a big shout out to my followers on X. Until the next video, good luck with your collection.